So, Gaijin has proposed some new BR changes. Needless to say, since I'm making a video on it, there are a few issues that I would like to address. Before I get into the specific changes, I want to encourage everyone watching who has an opinion on these changes to go onto Gaijin's feedback forum and give their responses. My opinion holds as much weight as the opinions of any one of you, and Naval is a relatively small community, so every voice matters. You don't have to agree with me either. Regardless of your opinion on these changes, please express them to Gaijin and support others doing the same thing. That's the only way that we're going to get our voices heard by them. Now on to discussing the changes themselves. There are a couple major change brackets that I would like to discuss, with lots of vehicles in similar positions moving to the same BR. First is a lot of starter destroyers moving to 3.3. While these ships do struggle in combat against higher BR destroyers, I don't think moving them down is an effective answer. It's only going to make the lower battle ratings even more compressed. Vehicles from 2.7 to 3.3 are already in a bad spot when facing starting destroyers, and moving them down will make the issue worse. I think the starter destroyers should stay at 3.7 with the exception of the Clemson L-45 due to its incredibly poor firepower. Rather, the decompression for destroyers should happen upwards, not downwards. Keep these at 3.7, but expand the ships above it upwards. Speaking of which, next is the Porter, Summers, and PR-56 going to 5.0. While these destroyers are stronger than most 4.7s, at 5.0 they will face cruisers every match and constantly have to face 5.7s. It's also worth noting that the new Strashimi isn't going up with the PR-56, despite being incredibly similar to it. The Sumner isn't going up either, which I kinda get, though I think it makes more sense to keep it with the Porter and Summers, because it is about as powerful as them. Overall, I'm mostly fine with these going to 5.0, I just think that cruisers need to go up to facilitate the change. The Dardo and G-Class also went down to 3.7, but that makes enough sense considering they're not very powerful, so no complaints there. Next, the HMS Tiger and Leipzig going down to 5.3. While they are on the weaker side of 5.7s, they aren't really 5.3 material either, especially the Leipzig. Comparing the Leipzig to ships like the Agano and Arethusa, it's better than them by a very wide margin due to its extensive turtleback scheme. The Leipzig and HMS Tiger should both remain at 5.7, however many other 5.7s need to be moved up to 6.0. Right now more than half of the cruisers in War Thunder are at 5.7, so it simply needs to be split in half with half of them moved up. If we decompress 5.7 down instead, it's only going to make more cruisers and destroyers worthless. Adding 6.0 also starts prepping for the eventual inclusion of battle cruisers, since if they're added at the current empty 6.0, that would be pretty disastrous to Naval as a whole. The next group of changes is a lot of minor adjustments in the lower tiers. First is lots of 2.0s going to 1.7, or 2.3s going down to 2.0. Lots of these are already larger and tankier ships, such as the Flower class and MPK-163. Low tier compression is already bad enough, and making reserves face these ships more often or facing newer, stronger ones is a really bad idea. I would propose just leaving all of these where they are at the moment, rather than making the low tier compression worse than it already is. Next up is the Russian riverboats going up, again. These ones are odd since they're just kinda unbalanceable due to Naval's mechanics, since in some situations the ships they're facing are completely unable to kill them, even when they're in an up tier. I suppose that moving them up works for now, but I would much prefer some armor mechanic changes to make them a little less invincible, such as armor degradation, but only in Naval since it isn't really needed in tanks. The PR-123s are moving up from the tech tree ones to the premiums. These ships are generally very powerful, but this BR shift doesn't make much of a difference to their performance. It's better to move them up from facing reserves, I just wish that Gaijin would follow the same philosophy with other ships that are going down in this patch. Next is a specific one that I want to mention, the BMO. The BMO was originally at 2.0 and has progressively gone up until now it's moving to 3.0. I think 2.7 is fine for it, but the real issue is other ships with similar capabilities that aren't being touched at all. Specifically, the SC-497. With the 40mm Bofors, 3 Orlikons, and a very tanky hull, why is this ship at 2.0 while the BMO is going to be a 3.0? It's debatably the better of the two, but for some reason they're going to be separated by an entire battle rating. I would propose leaving the BMO at 2.7, but moving the SC-497 up to 2.3 to be with other ships that are similar to it, like the Dark class FPB-1102 and MS-472. Next is the SETA P-494 going up to 4.7. This is kinda deserved, due to the combination of incredibly powerful cannons and the Nettuno missiles, but my complaint is that the Freysha P-493 isn't going up. It's been blatantly overpowered since it was introduced, and it's still at 4.0. It could easily go up to 4.3 or even 4.7, and it would still do perfectly fine. After this is the PR35 and PR159 going up to 4.3 together. This is a bit of an odd one, but so long as destroyers are decompressed upwards, I'm on board with it. These two have great damage output at the cost of a very short effective range, so they should do fine at 4.3 so long as they're played right. Next up is the Chikugo and Ikazuchi moving up to 3.7, which I would understand if starter destroyers weren't being moved down to 3.3. Additionally, the Akabono isn't being moved despite being a direct upgrade to the Ikazuchi. If the destroyer changes were reverted, putting these at 3.7 would be fine. Hopefully a repair cost decrease could come with the BR raise for the Ikazuchi too, since right now it is simply too expensive. That's not all the changes, however those are the major ones that I want to address directly. I've left a write-up covering all of this along with a plan for decompressing 5.7 on Gaijin's feedback forum. If you agree with it, please give it a like, and if you don't, leave your own explaining what changes you want made instead. I'll be linking both the feedback forum and a link to my comment in the comment section below. The only way we're going to get changes in Naval is if we get as many voices out there as possible. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Naval content.